it's the late February edition of the Mohney Show, and we're out on the street again, as you can probably see. We're at Maximilian Motorsports in Chehalis. Maximilian, thanks for being on the Mohney Show.
My pleasure.
And we continue to go around to various businesses in Centralia, Chehalis, Lewis County. In fact, we're heading back into Chehalis here in a while, and we're going to hit a store that we'll talk about in just a couple of minutes. But this is super cool. So this is like a wonderland for motorheads. And you've been doing this. How long have you been in the business?
Well, this company, 30 years, so a couple days.
Wow.
So.
How long have you been in this location here?
Oh, I don't know, 18?
Yeah, right around there.
I don't know. I'm one of those people that has a hard time. I don't look in the rearview mirror much. I just check that there's no one following me.
Exactly.
You know.
So, I mean, did you get into cars at an early age? I mean, were you really young? I mean, I was probably 4 or 5 years old when I knew I really liked what this whole thing was about.
I've always been passionate about automobiles and got my first car when I was 12. I saved up money for it.
Wow.
And to be fair, a really truncated version, having cars and dealing with them is sort of been auto therapy, pun intended. My father passed away when I was 12. And so that's you either go to the dark side or, I've always been into difficult times in life. Cars can bring me back. The world disappears. It's a form of meditation in some regard.
Yes.
And, so that's how the passion always is there. So I'm fortunate that I have that opportunity to do something I love. Granted, there's a lot of aspects that are overwhelming and some parts aren't as enjoyable as other parts. But it's a great opportunity to always push yourself because the medium of automobiles is always changing. You could be stuck in 1965, or you can be at today's technology that is just moving so quick. It expands at such a rate that's mind-boggling.
I'm back in the late 60s, early 70s.
And that's okay.
But I'm not fixing them for the vast amount of people.
Correct.
So I could completely agree with what you say about, it's the passion and... when you're feeling a bit down, again, this is what you do for a living, but man, it's fun to complete stuff on a car, isn't it?
It is, and it's, you're forcing yourself, especially if you're building a car from scratch, or you're dealing with a car that's really difficult. It's a sense of reward. It's not pushing a button and so forth. There's an artistry, and that's in any form. In the artistry that you do, it's enjoyable, but it's frustrating. It's enjoyable, but it's work. It's enjoyable. I always say that a rock star doesn't necessarily like to travel on the tour bus, but it's part of it. So, with this staying relevant with cars, it's a lot of learning. It's a lot of expansion. It's a lot of processes. It's a lot of you're never done. And most people look in life to have a station, attain it, and be able to cruise. If you're passionate about what you do, you never are at that point, and that's okay. Life is a journey with no destination.
Well said. Did you go to school?
Basically, everyone's my teacher. No one's my teacher. I've been very fortunate. I worked at a Ferrari dealership. I worked at a restoration shop. I, worked at a Porsche race facility and so forth. So I've had some great opportunities. But really, my tenure working for other people was very short. And so with that, I'm a voracious self-educator. Again, I learn from other people. But just one of the things that's unique about us too. I'm blessed is that we don't really learn on other people's cars. So we've owned a ton of different cars. And so with that, it's like, okay, I know about that one and this one and that one. And so you're not learning on it. And so I dive deep on a lot of cars.
Well, that's what I was going to say. I mean, you're not dealing with the simplest of, a late 60s Mopar or a Chevy or whatever. I mean, the stuff you have in here, this is complicated stuff, isn't it?
For sure.
This stuff.
Well, and part of it, so cars, repairing them has become very expensive. And why has it become expensive? Well, the root car is expensive. So the more expensive it is, the parts and the necessity of repairing it. So it's the difference of having a mansion or a small house, which is going to be more expensive for the roof? The mansion. So that's a ratio of it. There's far more technology. It's very common for road cars to be four-wheel drive, to have a lot of technology. Heated seats is nothing special. All driver aids is nothing special. Anti-lock brakes, all these things are standard that they weren't in the 1960s. So you have the complexity, you have the expenses. You also have a high turbocharger, super common in cars, and supercharging back in the 60s. That was a rare bird that had that. So you have these many layers of technology. You have the demands of the consumer and the demands of the environment and the demands of safety that have intervened and created a more complex vehicle. And it requires a lot of specialty tools that aren't cost effective. You know, one thing people may or may not be aware of, with onboard diagnostics, everyone thinks, oh, you plug it in, it tells you what's wrong. Ish and no. It's sort of like having blood tests. The doctors say, oh, your thyroid's a problem potentially, or this or that. But is it really that, we don't have to do anything more? It's a lot of times a good pathway to follow, and it gives you some crumbs to which to look at. But really, it's no different than in the 1960s looking at the spark plug and say, oh, your ignition's not right on the money. Let's adjust the carburetor or the timing. And access the information. So there's different levels. People think, oh, I got O'Reilly scan my car. That's totally different than what we have. We may have a $10,000 piece of equipment. Access to the information is very expensive. So now, there's credentials. So case in point, I have credentials to make keys for cars, transponders and so forth, program a lot of the secure things. We are bonded to do that. There's background checks with it. The government is involved with it. So if you're going to be at that level, it takes a lot more. And even if you had the most passionate point, unless you're bonded, unless all these things that the consumer's not aware of, those are very critical and part of that thing. Because people have seen Gone in 60 Seconds, they order up the key or something. You can't do that. You're bonded. You have to follow the processes with it. And some of the information is available, but it's very expensive. Case in point, with the right to repair, Ferrari, I'm going to be really rough with my numbers, to gain access to the service information and being able to communicate with their computers and all, I think it's about $35,000 a year just for the license. Whoa. That's not forever, that's just for that year. Wow. So there's a lot of overhead that's incurred with everything, data, information. So, we're all used that we need to update some software on our computer. Well, that's amortized with a large percentage of people. With the automotive industry, if you want access to that, it's very expensive. And so some of these cars, we're only buying it for a day because it doesn't make sense to spend $15,000 and only need that information 4 times a year. But you have a lot of costs that people aren't aware of behind the scenes that are relevant to it. There's a process for all the security of accessing the cars. We have to meet those standards because in theory, someone could latch on that when we're programming a car and nefarious things could be done. So it's a whole nother level than it was in the 1960s.
Man, oh man, oh man. Yes, it is. With all that being said, so neither one of us have an agenda. We talked about that.
Correct. I thought yours was world dominance.
Well, I guess, yeah.
Well, with a handsome smile like that, how can you avoid that?
Well, yeah. Okay, so you caught me. Electric cars, hydrogen. There's all this talk. I mean, you're now getting into the repair of electric cars, right?
Correct. Yeah. Well, at the end of the day, I don't have an agenda. Electric cars, the perfectly wrong answer for some people, just like a gas vehicle is the wrong answer.
Right.
You can't lump things with different needs, and there's a universal fit for everything. And sort of think of it like a one-man band.
Right.
One-man band can play a lot of instruments, but none of them really well.
Right.
And there is no car that fits you, me, Brittany, behind the camera, all of our needs exactly the same. And so I think people are misguided in putting grandiose, painting things with absolute answers, and they aren't. And I think electric vehicles have their place. I think, honestly, hybrids are probably a good compromise for most people. Diesel still is relevant for everything. There's some, hydrogen may have its viability, but that's going to be quite some time out for the infrastructure and the cost to amortization that's necessary for that to be. So, with what they have in California, when you buy or lease the vehicle, they give you like a 35 I'm going to be totally wrong, but let's say it's $15,000 worth of free fuel to help offset that. Okay. And so we've had in the past several years, for 10 years or so, incentives that have skewed the numbers. Very few people look at things holistically. So Volkswagen, which makes electrics, which makes hybrids, and which gas and diesel, which I'm going to say they're going to be a little more honest and they don't have an agenda. The report that they put out a few years ago said an electric vehicle is not better for the environment until about 150,000 miles into it. After that point, it becomes very effective and better for the environment. And I don't know how cradle to grave they're getting. A lot of cars don't make it that far. They get totaled and so forth, or it takes 1 billion years. You know, there's many aspects that very few people are going to be honest and really look at it in the big picture. If you want it to be really good for the environment and you only drive 5,000 miles a year, you know what? What's really best for the environment is probably your old Camaro. Why? Because it's already done its environmental thing. Mm-hmm. You're not producing another vehicle. You're utilizing what's already there. So you're an environmentalist.
I am.
Because you put less than 5,000 miles on your Camaro, that's right? So you're Mr. Green.
But I will say, in some states, California,
isn't that a different country?
They're going after our beloved muscle cars.
Because it's misguided. And here's the thing, but with politicians, they like to say that they initiated something. They know either they blithely decide that they don't want to be aware of the truth. The inconvenient truth is the infrastructure is not there. It's not, I can't make it dictate, and it suddenly is. Because laws, as we know, make people transform them. So they made many acts illegal and so forth, and no one does those things, right? It changes everything. Well, here's the thing. With their mandates, they're actually being negative to the environment in some part. So let's talk Norway. So they have an 80% saturation of new cars that are electric being sold. Initially, when they brought them out, they did things like you could travel in the high occupancy lanes, the bus lanes and so forth. You got, I think, no tax was made on the vehicle, which they have a pretty steep value-added tax, like 20%. So they really incentivized it. And they did some other things as well. Well, now they've created their own animal, is that there's more congestion. They had to lower the bus rates because people were finding that the car was cheap enough to run day to day.
Right.
And so now they've created another problem. Yes. And so you have to treat it holistically. And so what they actually are saying, don't buy electric cars, run your gas or diesel car, finish the use of it. That's the best for the environment than just dropping it like a hot potato and moving on to something else.
Yeah.
But people, here's again, if you wanted to be truly, your interest was the environment, go buy a used Volkswagen diesel. Mm-hmm. Take the $80,000 extra you'd buy, let's say even $30,000 for a Tesla. You know what? Reforest an area. If you were genuine, that would be your point.
Well, if you were genuine, you'd ride a bike.
Fair enough. That's the most efficient use of energy.
You could ride your bike. You could get a Schwinn orange crate or a lemon peeler.
Right? Yep.
Those are cool.
Yeah.
Or you can just get, whatever you want.
I see a lot of people that do ride their bicycles in Lewis County. Now, it might be due to economics or not having a license, too.
Yeah.
Wait, licenses don't stop people driving in this county. That's another issue.
And with really all that being said about, different types of car, hydrogen, vehicles and electric vehicles, let me ask you this. How do you think they're coming along as far as distance and like maybe a Ford pickup or something like that? I mean, is that going to be economical for folks to run versus, or is that even a question you can answer at this point?
Well, it's such an emerging technology, and a lot of people may have unrealistic time frame with it. Look, if you look in 1983, Popular Mechanics, there was an article about the new batteries that were using plastic, some form of plastic to hold the energy. That never came about. So there's a lot of pie in the sky, and that's, whoever's trying to get the next great thing with everything, and so that's a big factor with that. So give me one moment.
And it's the Mohney Show. Man, we are traveling all over the area. I mean, not, like hundreds of miles or anything, but in a little while, we're going back to downtown Chehalis. And more on that in just a couple of minutes here. But I'm at Maximilian Motors in...
Motorsports.
Yep.
It's all right. It's okay. It's all right. You haven't gotten the tattoo yet.
It's true.
but I will.
Yeah.
I know Tyler has one. You can show us the tattoo. Tyler actually has a tattoo.
Tattoo?
Yeah.
You don't have one.
I mean, I don't yet.
I know.
You can't get tattooed when you're pregnant.
Maximilian Motorsports. Oh, it's right there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, just from the top. We're gonna go to Brunswick, but we're here.
I'm just going to start out. We're here at Maximilian Motorsports. You want to edit that, or just I'll just start it?
Yeah.
Okay.
What are we gonna do? I will make you a product with whatever we have.
I know you will. Again, let me think again here.
She's the magic eraser.
Trash.
I'm saying I'm putting everything together in my head here.
You want another cue?
So Maximilian, take us out to
Sure.
the parking lot.
All right.
Let's check out.
Let me grab some keys. Sure. Just 1 second.
That's the Porsche, right?
Yes, 911. And the neat thing about cars is there's a story. So the gentleman that owns us now, he was delivered from the hospital in this car.
Whoa.
So that's sort of a cool thing.
Yes.
You know, there's a long-standing history. So that's what I find fascinating. In automobiles, and there's a history and there's a story behind it.
There's
The
a story,
Porsche that's
yeah.
right over there, the red one, the gentleman bought it in 1971. Then it was painted, and then it sat in a barn for like 30 years. And you know, we're fixing it up. He passed away. We're fixing it up for his wife, so she can enjoy it. So it's sort of a touchstone for that. Even to that old Corvette, I pulled out of a barn, and I found the paperwork from the original owner, and he had gotten a pay increase because he was in the military. So I was able to track him down.
Oh, okay.
And so it's neat, those history of these stories. You can't just, you know, new cars is sort of cool, but honestly, there's no story attached to it.
No,
you know,
not really. That's really the fun when you're, you know, when you pull one out of a barn like that. You want to know, you know, where it came from,
Yeah.
who bought it, you know, what the history was, what, you know.
that's the humanity.
Yes.
You know, cars can be very cold and sterile, or it can be just ooze with
Well, they
history,
become a part of the
humanity.
family.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
you know, a lot of people, you know, it's interesting. We'll service a car, and we will be the constant over 10, 15 years, 20
Yeah.
years, and it's been through 3 owners. You know, so it's like I know that car better than anyone else. You know,
Exactly.
and so that's sort of fun. And that black car that Brittany's panning right now is what they used in the old TV series of Miami Vice. So
But not the car.
there were several that were used. You know, so yeah, this would have been a replica exactly like the one that was used in the TV series.
Very nice. And then there's the Mini. I
Yeah,
mean,
like in the original you know, Italian Job and so forth.
it's not like a new Mini that's not completely Mini, but it's
It's
Mini.
the genesis of what the Mini was, and that's what the newer models replicated, is taking on that, you know, sort of idea and construct.
Right.
And I fit comfortably in it.
You drove it to the Music in the Park last year.
Yep, yep.
George Harrison, Beatle, George Harrison. George had his birthday a couple of days ago. Happy birthday to George Harrison. He used to show up at Abbey Road Studios. He'd get out of his little Mini. His little Mini, is that an oxymoron? Little Mini?
It's,
I guess
yeah.
it is. Okay, we're going outside
It's like-
now. Let's.
And actually, Enzo Ferrari owned a couple of them. He enjoyed them as city cars.
It's a glorious day here in Western Washington as we approach the end of February. March 1st, of course, is Friday. Kind of chilly out here.
It'll be like 5 minutes. And so we have the ability to fully charge a vehicle, not at a slow rate, but an actual fast rate and so forth, which, you know, and then we have other spots in the shop as well to do it. And then I'll actually open the door here. We have storage for customer cars and all, because when you get to family members, you
Right.
don't put them outside and say, well, enjoy the time.
Exactly.
And a lot of these specialty cars, you have to wait for parts, there's delays, and, you know, again, if your dog needed a new set of teeth, you wouldn't leave it outside.
No, you wouldn't.
You know.
You would find some kind of shelter for it.
Exactly.
Yes.
So I'll open the door and you can take a look a little bit of what we're adding. We're actually adding in some more lifts as well. That's what these gentlemen panned behind you are.
So as far as your charging station, I mean, was that tough to get hooked up, or?
Yeah,
you know?
we had to bring 200 amps extra, so it involved the PUD and all the permitting and everything else to do it.
So basically, it's 200 amps. I mean, that's what a house is running off
Exactly.
of. So that's
yeah.
what you need to charge one of those.
Because we want to be able to charge multiple vehicles.
Okay.
And so the shop didn't have enough surplus, didn't have 100 amps extra, because then generally you don't
So
build
how many
something.
does each car? How many can you charge off 200 amps?
Well, generally most of them are threshold stopped at 50 amps. So there's a level
Okay.
1, level 2, level 3 charging. So level 3 is going to be a 3-phase. We didn't do that, but the high end of the level 2 is generally 50 to 80. And so your home charge one's 15 amps, which it takes like 80 billion hours to do it. So exponentially,
Right,
it's more effective the more amperage you bring. So 50 would allow a car that's fully depleted, like a Tesla, depending which battery pack it has, probably to be fully charged in 4 hours versus like 48 hours and 15.
It just, part of me being a smart ass here, I pulled the truck over to a gas station, pulled in, and I filled it up in about 3 minutes. So
Yep.
again, I don't know. Funny. Never mind.
Everything's
Hey,
a
what do we have
compromise.
in here?
Oh, just different cars.
Ooh, T-Bird, is that a 56?
You're close, 55.
55.
Yes. It's perfect. It's for sale. It's perfect for you.
Oh, love it. Love it.
So just some other project cars, Rolls-Royce, and then a Lotus, and so forth, and then, all the other cars.
So Governor 1, tell me about these plates here. You got one on this car. You got
That one, that one.
So they're all. So is that you?
Yeah, there's the RCW allows you to have any plate that the car could have originally had when it was new.
Okay.
And the reason that there's multiples is that the governor used to give them out to people. So I have a collection of them. There's a couple that are actually the ones the governor had. So nice. It's just something easy to remember. And there's a little more to that, but I'll tell you in privacy.
Okay. No, very nice.
So we're always making things better and improving things. You can, with organization and so forth. And so we're organizing things a lot better here and so forth. But most shops don't have everything organized down with everything and so forth. We're reorganizing this, but even
how many shops have a floor cleaner.
well, even a robot vacuum. That's the industrial RoboVac.
I didn't know Makita made one of those.
Yes, it's from Asia. It
Wow.
actually is all on top, but even down to, just making sure that everything's, we're fortunate. Sally makes sure that everything's
That's
inventoried and
European
so forth.
stuff. That's,
Yeah, so we're very thorough about making sure we have everything on hand that's necessary to do the job right,
That's a fortune in there.
Well, the barrels of oil are, if we have one, we have two. We always have a backup, so with everything. So we were very
I had a
cognizant of that.
VW when I was, I don't know, maybe 15 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Everything was like 10 times. I wasn't used to it because I've been like a domestic
Yes.
car owner for a long time. I'm like, oh, this is a lot more money than other stuff. Okay, come on out here.
All right. So we have an eclectic selection again. New. It has some various maladies. It's an older Volkswagen, but here's something that's down your vein of cars. So this has a supercharged Corvette motor in it, 0 miles, crate motor, 750 horsepower. Because we've put different cams, headers, and so forth in it. Jason's been working on the motor, and Chris has been doing the wiring and the interior. It's a sleeper, has a T56 manual transmission and so forth. So it's definitely a sleeper. Now the cat's out of the bag, because anyone will see it will know that it's not your Gen 1 Camaro with a 305 in it or something.
Well, it's a 69, so they would have put a 307 in it.
Correct.
By mid-year. But
Yes.
The early ones from late 68 came into 327.
Yeah. No. Yeah, they had different ones, and you had the Z28.
But if you had the Z28, you had a 302. So.
Or if you could have the Z.
Is this one of the X's? Can I look in here? And,
Yeah.
Oh man. Oh, I have to get glasses here. Well, it's been quite the tour, and I've learned quite a bit. Now I'm gonna I'm going to come out here and pick your brain. You know that, don't you?
Not a
It's like
problem.
it's a car thing.
Not
it's
a
like,
problem.
Oh, yeah, I got to go out and talk to Maximilian. Thank you.
My pleasure. And,
uh,
to hear, to meet the handsome man behind the handsome voice.
Well, thank you very much. And it's good to meet the youthful man behind the Mini.
Okay.
I've heard much about you. Oh, by the way, I've always liked the fact that you pulled off the races out there.
The rally crosses.
The
and all.
rally.
Yeah.
During Chehalis Fest.
Yeah.
Very cool. So we'll come back and visit you again.
Sure.
Thank you for being on the Mohney
Yep.
Show, and we're back after this.